Hey everybody, how's everybody doing today? Today we're going to be talking about one of Quentin Tarantino's newest controversial films that's coming out on Christmas Day. And the reason why I want to talk about it because there's been a lot of controversy behind this film. We're going to go into the whole controversy, and basically there's going to be two parts we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about how this film has become the most talked about slave film since Roots. I'll put it to you this way. This film is so controversial that, like, remember the movie Jackie Brown when Samuel L. Jackson was in and he was using the N word? I know a lot of people get offended, but I'll say when he used the word nigga or nigger, whatever way you want to say it, the film was used. He used the word so many times that even Spike Lee made a couple of comments. It's going to be very interesting to see how Spike Lee reacts to this film. But for the most part, people are talking about Django Unchained like it's the greatest film of all time. And I guess people who've seen it at the junctions, where they do movie junctions and the news reporters come in, and I guess that's how the comments are coming out. But for the most part, I haven't seen it on bootleg yet, and it'd be very interesting to see this. I mean, my wife has already talked about she doesn't want to see this particular film because the atrocities that happened to African American people during the slave period before the pre-war in the Civil War. And, excuse me, and this is so interesting because the reason why I wanted to bring this film up, because this film has been talked about all week in the news. How, first of all, people at Sandy Hook at the elementary massacre were burying people today, and for that I want to give my heart and condolences again for the people who buried the dead. They're not dead, they're basically going to heaven, and believe me, God basically will protect them in a peaceful world, so the loved ones don't have to worry about their loved ones being gone because their soul already made it to heaven. But the reason why I brought this up, because now that the victims are talking about how this movie Django Unchained promotes violence, where we just had violence, and already there are people in schools talking about they want to shoot up a high school, and it's just gotten so, like, this particular tragedy at Sandy Hook really took people hard, and the debate over gun control is being brought up. But Django Unchained not only is being brought up for the extreme violence that Quentin Tarantino normally does in his films, but now it's being criticized for the use of the nigger word, or nigga, whatever the way you want to say it. Now the problem that a lot of people are having is this film had niggas so many times that, first of all, the movie's 165 minutes, so we're talking over 2 hours, over 2.5 hour flick. So we're talking about a long film talking about slavery, talking about romance, talking about the Ku Klux Klan, and showing racism at its worst that you can see. Now, this plantation fantasy that Quentin wanted to be a Negro wants to do is always interesting, because we all know that Quentin Tarantino is not making a history piece. He's doing an exploitation film. I think that Quentin Tarantino likes to do movies like this where he kind of basically, I don't really think he pokes fun of, so I don't think he's poking fun of the film. I think what he's doing is that he's trying to make an interesting romance film, but during a slave period. And a lot of people were talking, there was what's her name, Kerry Washington. She was defending the film by saying that what he was trying to show was that what the atrocities that African American people went through during the plantation period. Which, okay, I'm not saying that's not wrong what she's saying, but the problem is that the person who's directing it is the same person who is obsessed with saying the word nigga. So, this is not, it's not like a Spike Lee piece, I mean, we would expect Spike Lee to make an intelligent film about the slave period in its reality. I think that Quentin Tarantino does what he normally does in his movies, where when he written and directed Reservoir Dogs, it was basically white trash gangsters talking about blacks and killing people and showing a robbery after the fact. Then he written, who had Tony Scott direct, True Romance, another film that was basically exploitation at its lowest, where you saw one of the worst beatings on a woman in history. That scene where James Gandolfini beats up Patricia Arquette, and basically the beating was so brutal. It was just like, it was. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it was a great film that Tony Scott directed, but Quentin Tarantino is famous for that. I mean, he there's some films when he makes where he takes the N word to the extreme, and then there's some other films he didn't really do that with, like with Natural Born Killers. It wasn't really like that. Or, well, there were scenes where in the jail scene, but I'm talking about where the main characters are talking about blacks all through the film. But this new film that he's doing, because a lot of people will criticize Quentin Tarantino for that use of the word nigger, and believe me, him and Spike Lee it's gonna be interesting to see how this battle between Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino is gonna be. Now, Quentin Tarantino is put the N word in the slave period film, and he's basically, is going to go all the extreme. I just find it funny that, they're calling this the greatest film of all time and hasn't even come out yet. So the critics must think that, okay, you know what, it's a great film. I mean, I haven't really seen it yet, so, it'd be interesting to see. But you know something, I'm not going to go to the theater and see it. I'm going to bootleg it like I normally do with Quentin Tarantino's films, because I'm not going to let him get rich off slavery. It's kind of weird because, a lot of people are saying to themselves, well, we're going to go see Quentin Tarantino. I heard a bunch of black people talking about they want to see Django Unchained. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to see that. I think it's rather sad that, we have an African American president who made history for ourselves, and it seems like everyone who is making films about African Americans seems to be like disrespecting black people, and I don't know why that is. I don't understand why is it that when black people have reached the highest mountaintop they could get, we seem to look at films where they're being criticized and we're going backwards. Like, why would we want to see a slave movie where basically we are seeing history in the making? President Obama will be on Time Magazine's Person of the Year, and then he's at an era at a time where basically Quentin Tarantino is making a film about a black man who's being freed as a slave and wants to save his woman through being traded off to slavery, and basically he has help with one of his white buddies, and they go shooting white people throughout the whole film. I'm like, what kind of dumbass shit is this? I'm not paying no money to see that. And if all of you were smart, and I'm sure there's some smart ass people, I hope that people don't buy into Quentin Tarantino and say, you know what, just, what it is for some films, because I'm not going to go to a film where I'm going to listen to white people laugh all day and talk about nigger all day. And I don't want to listen to black people cheering the fact that, laughing at the fact that Quentin Tarantino is poking fun at you. He's basically patronizing you. And I don't understand why black people feel that they need to see films like this. I think if you're smart and you really want to hurt his pocket, go and download it or get it from your local bootlegger, because you don't want to spend that kind of money on making Quentin Tarantino rich by basically saying, hey, look, you know what, well, let's go and see a movie where he's talking about the word nigger throughout the whole film. Obviously the word nigger is going to be his favorite word, and that's going to be over two hours and 40 some odd minutes of just basically nigger this, nigger that. You're gonna have Samuel L. Jackson as the Uncle Tom saying nigger, and Leonardo DiCaprio is gonna probably say nigger, and Jamie Foxx, and so all these characters that are in this movie are gonna be using the word nigger. It's like, and then I hate it. I hate when he does that, because when he was making True Romance, I remember everybody that was in the film laughing at all his nigger jokes. It's like, give me a fucking break. I mean, nobody, I'm not gonna sit there and watch blacks and whites being patronized by some director who's obsessed with the word nigger and obsessed with black culture. It's just weird like that. I mean, I obviously believe that, it just seems like Quentin Tarantino doesn't have any respect for history. I would think if black people are smart, don't support it, because if you're going to go see a film where you're basically going to have white people in the audience laughing at you and black people in the audience laughing at dumb shit, don't go to the film. The best way I always say to prevent from being insulted is say, you know what, I don't want to see a film that Quentin Tarantino is going to talk about niggers all day and gooks all day and spics all day and kikes or whatever. I mean, he's done movies like this with Inglourious Basterds, but it seems like with this particular film, he's going to take it all the way, especially when you figure, he's going to do this movie and then maybe in the next couple of years he's going to do Kill Bill 2 or whatever, and it's the idea that, something, we have history in the making. I don't really think that a slave film, we need to go back in the past, is going to prevent, slavery. Slavery happened. Black people are free. Black people can make accomplishments. Why do you need to disrespect them by making some dumbass shit about a film that basically goes back into the past? You can't change the past, but you can change the future by telling Quentin Tarantino, I don't need your slave picture. I think you're going to poke fun of us and you're not really helping us. Okay, sure, you made Jamie Foxx the main character of the film, but still, you're still poking fun of the fact that slavery to you is basically an exploitation. You're not really doing anything of significance. This is going to be an unrated R film, which later will be an uncut version of what this particular slave period is. You're going to see black people being whipped and black people fighting amongst each other like sport, and you're going to see Leonardo DiCaprio use nigger and black and coon and all this bullshit stuff, and then you're gonna see Jamie Foxx kill white people, and I'm sure that's gonna make black people laugh in the theater, and then it's gonna make white people laugh when they hear white people use the word nigger. It's just like, you know what, cut that shit out, And Jamie Foxx is being ignorant because he's talking about how, when I read Quentin Tarantino's script, the use of the word nigger was just all over the place in this script. But yet, you said the word nigger in some of your films. So don't be a hypocrite and all that dumb shit. If you don't like the script that he was writing, then don't take the movie part. Give it to somebody else. If you felt insulted and say, you know what, I'm not really feeling this word because he's basically poking fun of us, then fuck the shit and don't do the movie. Give it to Denzel. And if you don't want it, give it to somebody else. So, you know what? Don't get caught up on all that bullshit. Just understand this. If you want to be really smart and you don't want to hear the N-word, don't give Quentin Tarantino your money. Don't let Quentin Tarantino patronize you and basically treat you like some dumbass because you can't think for yourself. If you want to be smart, bootleg his movie. That'll hurt his pocket. And then at the end of the day, you know what? There won't be no talk about, well, Sandy Hook is pissed off because there's gunplay. Then black people are pissed off because of the word nigger all day. And then Spike Lee don't got him. I love you, Spike, and I love that you keep it real. But you know something? We don't need nobody to do an exploitation film. And so, go ahead with that and cut that bullshit out. So, hit me up with your comments. Tell me what you think. Do you think the N-word in Quentin Tarantino's film is useful for us to learn, or do you think that people should pass this film up because it insults history, and basically the film will not have any positive input whatsoever, but just another violent, exploited piece of shit. So hit me up with your comments, tell me what you think. Have a great day and enjoy the holiday.